We are so excited for you to have all join us this wonderful evening. For those who don't know, my name is Abigail Rivera. My pronouns are he, him, and I'm the SAG Arts and Culture Outreach and Partnerships Coordinator for this year. I'd also like to introduce the rest of the team. Cadence, who's not here right now, but let's go Cadence. Me and Sonia, our marketing and social media coordinators. Matilda and Amanda, our logistics coordinators. Ariel, our accessibility and activities coordinator. Abby, our Macmillan gallery assistant and our events assistant. Zoe, Nick, and all them. And our advisor, Suzanne. I want to start by saying we acknowledge that our events and the work we do on the U of O campus is taking place on stolen land, and that land acknowledgements are often problematic and fail to include actionable items. We encourage all of our guests tonight to research whose land they grew up on and how you can support those Indigenous communities. If you'd like to learn more about and support the Indigenous speakers that the B Series has hosted since 2016, please visit our link tree in our Instagram bio at UO_BE Series. There you'll find links to each creative's pages where you can buy their merchandise, share their contact information, and support their projects. We'd like to thank the UO Native Strategies Committee for the wording of the UO land acknowledgement, and we read it here for those who are unaware of whose land exists within the boundaries of what is now known as the state of Oregon. We acknowledge that the University of Oregon is located on Kalapuya Ilihi, the traditional indigenous homeland of the Kalapuya people. Following treaties between 1851 and 1855, Kalapuya people were dispossessed of their indigenous homeland by the United States government and forcibly moved to the Coast Reservation in Western Oregon. Today, descendants are citizens of the Confederated Tribes of Grand Norte Community of Oregon and the Confederated Tribes of Siletz Indians of Oregon, and continue to make important contributions in their communities at the University of Oregon and across the land we now refer to as Oregon. For more information on current events and ways to get involved on our campus, we encourage you to follow and support the UO Native American Student Association, NASU, and the UO Many Nations Longhouse. Some other logistics for the night. Bathrooms, there's an all-gender restroom just outside the ballroom doors, down the hall to the right. There are also 2 gendered bathrooms down the hall to the left as you exit the ballroom. They are located within the Macmillan Gallery, which our team manages. If you have any questions or concerns during or after the presentation, please find a BE team member wearing a blue t-shirt. We are also hosting a social media giveaway tonight. The prize includes Steph Littlebird's, one of our previous speakers, picture book, My Powerful Hair, Vashti Harrison's book, Little Leaders, Bold Women in Black, History, and 2 $10 Prince Buckler's ice cream gift certificates. If you would like to enter, please check out our Instagram for more details. We'll announce the winners at the end of the event, and you must be present to win. Now, it's my pleasure to introduce our speaker tonight. Sonia Gipson Rankin is a professor of law at the University of New Mexico School of Law, where she teaches torts, family law, and technology and law. Professor Rankin's work combines her computer science background with her passion for legal justice. Her scholarship on artificial intelligence and technology was published in the Washington Lee Law Review and the New York University Law Review Online. Her work on legal pedagogy, which focuses on race and family law issues, has appeared in the Connecticut Law Review and Family Law Quarterly. She is deeply engaged in the legal community as an American Bar Foundation Fellow, member of the New Mexico Supreme Court Commission on Equity and Justice, and former president of the New Mexico Black Lawyers Association. Professor Rankin is also a member of the Interdisciplinary Working Group on Algorithmic Justice, a collaboration of computer scientists, legal scholars, and social scientists from New Mexico who provide insight to attorneys, government officials, and policymakers on issues related to artificial intelligence. She regularly presents on topics such as AI, technology, algorithmic justice, criminal justice, implicit bias, and inclusive leadership. Regarding these issues, Professor Rankin has been quoted in numerous media outlets, including BBC World News, Reuters, National Public Radio, and Yahoo Finance. Her mission is to inspire students, communities, and systems to seek justice with a spirit of excellence. Please help me by giving a very, very warm welcome to Sonia Gipson Rankin.
All right, give me 3 clicking seconds to get us set up. How y'all doing tonight?
Well.
Nope, y'all aren't doing good enough. We'll try it again. How y'all doing tonight? There we you go. That's the organ welcome I was looking for. Listen, I'm so excited about you all. Number one, for the invite. I'm ever so grateful to Kate. Is it all right where it's located? But I want to, I think we're going to have some fun tonight. So I am a professor, and I always start with my apologies. Lo siento. My mother's from Panama, my dad's from Louisiana, but I'm 100% Jersey girl. That means I talk fast, I talk a lot, and I might cut you off, no disrespect. But I give you that caveat so that I think we'll have a good time where we're going. I'll be very intentional not to over speak too quickly, but I'm a hand talker too, so we'll have a good time on this. My topic is be innovative. And when I was asked by Cadence and her amazing team, what do you want to talk about, what do you want to do, this word came to me, and hopefully after you hear some of the things I'll share tonight, you'll have an idea. Hey, how you doing, young man? Good to see you up there. All right. I would like to start with a dedication to my uncle who passed away this morning. This is dedicated to my uncle William Augustus Small. When he was 6 years old in Panama, he went to his mother, my grandmother, and said, "Mom, my head hurts." And it turns out he had a brain tumor. And the doctors in Panama told him he had 6 months to live. He lived to 81. He traveled the world. He played dominoes. He was the domino king of our family. He could play spades. He could count cards. He could do anything. And he was AI before there was AI. He told me every good show he knew I would like on Netflix. And he didn't even give my cousins the same list. We all got our own list. So this is dedicated to my beloved uncle. May he rest well. So with that in mind, I think it starts for you to get a framework for where we're going. So there was a job interview, and looking for a CEO, and they interviewed 3 individuals, an engineer, a physicist, and a lawyer. And the engineer came in, and they asked him a series of questions. They were very impressed with this engineer, and they said to the engineer, "Final question, what is 2 plus 2? And the engineer said, "Give me a moment," and went away and did some calculations and some work, and came back and said, "I did some calculations, I did some research, I pulled together all the information, and 2 plus 2 is 4. They said, "Thank you very much." Next comes in the physicist and asked a series of questions, and the physicist, they were very pleased, and they asked her, "What's 2 plus 2? And the physicist said, "Give me a minute," and stepped away and came back and said, "Well, I contacted the U.S. Bureau of Statistics, and looking at all the data, 2 plus 2 is 4. And they said, "Thank you very much, physicist." And third came in the lawyer. And they asked this lawyer a series of questions and completed with, "What is 2 plus 2? And the lawyer looked at the people interviewing her and walked over and closed the door and closed the blinds and came back and said, "What do you want it to be?" I bring that up because I think about the law and where it fits a lot, right? It ends up fitting in more places than we expect. It's not quite as linear and cut and dry as one can think it to be. My goal by the end of this is to convince all of you to go to law school or whatever else you endeavor. But I want you to think about where it fits into some of these contexts. And I am part of the interdisciplinary working group for algorithmic justice. As Avi so greatly said, right, this is made up of computer scientists, of lawyers, of political scientists, not one business person. This is the best name we could come up with. Not one marketing is not in our skill set. We're well aware of our limits. But with these colleagues, and in particular with Melanie Moses and Kathy Powers, one from computer science, one from political science, we have also created the UNM Algorithmic Justice Project, where we are intentionally creating interdisciplinary curriculum for undergrad and graduate students so that you all and students at this stage or wherever you are in your journey are going to be thinking intentionally about algorithms, AI, and where it fits into different scenarios. So how did I get here to be in this kind of place and position? And I just gave a talk at the New Mexico State Bar Conference on artificial intelligence, and I spoke just before, right after that, at the National Conference of Chief Justices, which was really, really cool. And there were so many law enforcement and lots of sheriffs. They were not going to let us get hurt with every Chief Justice in the country, and Guam, and Puerto Rico. I told the justices from Puerto Rico, I can travel. You're probably going to need me to come on site and have a conversation. I'm still waiting on that one. But it starts further back. Y'all don't even know what this is. This is a picture of my high school math club. Any math club people here? Anybody? Just me. All right. Online people. You can see all the hands in the room. I mean, everyone. I mean, I've been thinking about this idea of tech for a long, long time. And even before that, Here's little Sonia in the 3rd grade when I decided I was going to be a teacher. I wanted to teach. I wanted to explain. I wanted to do something that inspired people to do something they never saw before. Y'all don't know, they only took one picture of you back in the day, and that was it. And there my eyes closed forever, ever. And anyway, all right. But when I was an undergrad, I studied computer science, as you'll see, and this is the U.S. Black Engineers magazine, and they actually did an interview. This is 1996. I was a sophomore in college, and they wanted to know, what will you do to make a difference in your field of computer science? And I already expressed then that I was going to be a patent attorney. I had this desire. I didn't want to code. I didn't want to do computer science per se. I wanted to understand the tech so that I could help people get ideas, create them, and hold on to them, in particular helping Black communities by patenting your inventions, reinvesting it, and using that kind of knowledge to build wealth and inventions. Now keep in mind, right, it's 96, 98, you all don't even know, it was the heyday of tech. They were good times. They were giving away cars at job interviews. It was a different time. Different. Now Elon Musk is laying everybody off. Okay, but I want you to keep this in mind when you think about your journey and your path, right? It's okay to find your own path. I knew I wanted to do that. I knew I wanted to combine these things, but as I kept on living, I kept on coming across new interesting things. I fell in love with family law, and I wanted to know more about how do we protect and save our families and do good things for people. And then I started to realize maybe this tech and law thing are not quite so far apart. Maybe there's more overlap in just understanding where it is and where it's going. And then my journey has taken me on some pretty wild adventures, right? That took me in undergrad to law school in Illinois. My husband and I got married shortly after undergrad, moved to Illinois, and there I got involved in absolutely everything I could. And not only that, I decided, law school is not that complex. Why don't I have two children? I'll tell you the absolute truth. I had my first daughter, second semester 1L year, my second daughter, first semester 3L year. Do not recommend. Not quite 0 stars, but not 5 stars, right? I mean, it's somewhere, my Yelp review on children in grad school is a little complex, but it led me to realize that my journey was going to be different. And some of you may find that though you set plans and ideas, life will give you something nuanced to think about. And I realized I'd have to practice different in the law. I'd have to teach different. I'd have to get to my goals different, because I decided of a particular type of mother I wanted to be was going to require me to make some changes to my career. And I never lost that I wanted to teach, and in particular teach law school someday and get to that space. And it didn't happen right when I graduated. Look, 2002 is when I finished, but I didn't actually get to a tenure track job until 2018. What did I do in between all those years? I learned. I got a chance to get involved in Africana studies. I got to study all kinds of new areas, and then now I get to combine all of these really cool ideas and things. So I thought I'd tell you a little bit about some of the things I researched and the things I do. My first big paper was called Technological Tethers. Unintended consequences of risk assessment, criminal justice risk assessment instruments. One thing you'll discover in law reviews is we make the titles too long. That's how we get our word count up, is just put all the words in the title. So I got this word tethers. Anybody see the movie, not Get Out, what was the second movie? Us. Anybody here see Us? Jordan Peele's Us. Literally, that was, and so here's the thing, I watched way too much TV. This was the foundation of the beginning of my paper. So Us has this idea. How do I say it without giving it away? All right, too late. Here it goes. Spoiler alert. It's been out for a while. Go get caught up. In the film Us, there's this notion that the government is going to create, this is still deep. The government is going to create this technology or these people that it realizes it can't really control. And so it attempts to put them underground and lets them kind of go without any kind of control or oversight. And these tethers come from underground to take over other versions. And I started getting involved, this was in 2021, kind of studying a lot more about generative artificial intelligence. It was still a pretty unknown phrase there, and I was trying to get tenure, and so that paper is 78 pages. You can skip the edges. Right? Mostly it's about 400 footnotes. But it got me thinking there's this new thing coming that's a little bit more complex, and we're watching the government create this thing that is not being controlled in any way, shape, or form, and in particular is happening in our criminal justice risk assessment instruments. What does that kind of entail? Well, you get arrested, and the prosecutor is going to give a recommendation for a sentence. The public defender or the defense attorney is going to try to counter that. But the judge has to take in all this information about one particular individual and make a decision. Do I hold them for pretrial detention, or do I let them be released on their own recognizance, their own information? So it's pretty standard procedure. What if we added algorithms into that process? Why leave it to potentially the bias of a judge or some unknown things? What if the AI, the algorithms, could tell the judge my likelihood of reoffending, my likelihood of not showing up for court, my likelihood, and take out the human bias things that we know can happen and just give it over to the tech. And my paper discusses some things we want to watch out for that we need to be really intentional about, of using private, third-party proprietary software, or even open source software, some actual documented harms that can occur from that. After that, I had an opportunity to write for the New York Law Review online, and in particular, what was that this? Yeah, that's what this one was, which was looking at an unemployment fraud software that was being implemented in Michigan. The software was pretty powerful, right? What they discovered is that one of the most biggest issues, anyone's going to go into government work or think about it, is unemployment fraud, right? You say you're not working, but you actually are working. You say you need money, but you actually are employed. We try to watch these things. And unemployment fraud is a huge problem. As opposed to having humans at the helm of it, why not turn it over to the technology? And so they implemented, I'll be a little techie for some people, I think you might enjoy this. It was a COBOL-based system. So let's do a little test. How many of you have heard of the programming language Python? Anybody here code Python? Okay, let's try and go back a little bit. Any C# people? Anybody know a couple C# hands? All right, let's take it back one more. Java? JavaScript? All right. C++? All right, let's go back one more. C? All right. I'm going to see how far we're going to go. Let's, Pascal? All right, okay, I was hoping we had one. Any basic? Oh, you didn't put your hands up. You got to show me y'all know basic. Let's take it back one more. Fortran? All right, okay. COBOL. And for the diehards, assembly. All right, didn't get any assembly. So that's kind of a little history of coding. For some real fun, COBOL was designed by a woman. It is actually serving still today as the technology coding underpinning for much of our financial industry. Still today, they call them legacy systems. We still need people that can code in some of these older languages, because what happened, as that happened in Michigan, is they said, who knows this old school COBOL? We need to get rid of it. We need to move to cloud-based. And I don't know who was at the helm of the coding machine, but they just monkey typed whatever they wanted, and it's wild. This thing was so wrong. And here, lo and behold, here's what happened in Michigan. It was like, you wouldn't believe how much unemployment fraud is out there. And they were like, for real? And they're like, everybody's committing it. Triple the number of unemployment fraud detections. They were like, finally, we're going to save the Michigan budget. Turns out that all of these new indications, about 40,000 people, were now pinged as having completed unemployment fraud. It was wrong 93% of the time. It was taking people's tax refunds. It was garnishing their wages. And when people called the unemployment office and say, why did you take my money? The response said, I don't know, the computer said you committed fraud. They couldn't even interpret the code. It was, you wouldn't believe, you would be so freaked out at the errors. Like straight data changing errors, coders errors, like just basic kind of things. That's old school algorithm writing. If, then, else. If this occurs, then do that. That was my second paper. The third paper I'm working on now is called Automated Statecraft, which is focusing on, in particular, red light cameras and speed cameras. You know, our best friends. What does it mean that there's this eye in the sky that is now disproportionately going to be impacting Black and Hispanic communities with where they're located and the kind of type of funds that it is generating off the backs of people? So that's my research, that's what I do. And trying to stay gainfully employed, so I keep writing. Don't read this, that's tiny font on purpose. But what does this actually look like, right? I'm a Jersey girl, which means I grew up thinking about this all the time. And in particular, I am a black nerd. In case you don't know what a blurred means. This is literally me. This is a signed, autographed X-Men comic by the Stan Lee. Yeah, I paused for effect there. That's a Stan Lee signed comic book. That's me. I literally joined an adult band. Because who needs to just stop at the end of high school? You want a marching band, you take it to old folks. I got a bass clarinet. Anyway, this is me and my 4 children. I dragged them to the Game of Thrones exhibit at our local video place. And I said, everyone, we're going. And I'm going to sit on that throne. I mean, I am a black nerd on purpose. Someone's got to come out for the nerds. It's taken way too long for us to get our proper due. But I want to talk about what that means. It means, in particular, this complexity that happens when we think about innovation. And what does it take to innovate our communities? And what the research is showing is there's this idea of the American dream. Economic success and social achievement are available to anyone who follows the rules, anyone who works hard. But we know the reality is that for most people, where you're born is where you'll stay. Everything shows it. What we're going to discover is that this is called the myth of upward mobility. And there's this notion that because you are where you are, it's because you didn't want it enough. You lacked hustle, you lacked hunt, you lacked real drive, and it gets attributed to people's cultures and their backgrounds and all kinds of things that are actually not true. What we do understand is that for you to change your economic space, there needs to be an intervening cause. Something's got to break the cycle. Something's got to break the change. Something's got to break the trajectory. And if you want to see a family change, you've got to think about something breaking. So what do you all think might be the thing that will change a family's economic trajectory?
The lottery.
That is true. So the lottery, yes, that's one option. Go put your money there. What else?
Education.
Education. Education is actually the trajectory change. It is no small thing that you sit in this space. How many of you are first-generation college students? You are going to be the intervening trajectory change in your family. That's powerful, right? That's really a big thing to think about. I'm very aware that my grandparents, my great-grandparents in the South were sharecroppers. I'm very aware that it's not many generations ago that they worked on someone else's land and hoped for some recourse, that my grandmother was a domestic worker in the Deep South and picked cotton. That in my own father's childhood, he picked cotton. I'm not that old. I know y'all looking like, oh, that must be the 1800s. No. It's not that long ago. It's not long ago at all. That when my grandparents came to this country from Panama, they were permitted to be, my grandmother collected subway tokens in the New York subway system, and my grandfather was a doorman. What changed our trajectory? This is why it matters, right? I'm well aware of what these changes mean because that's what happened in my family. Education. My parents happened to be a couple of black people in the 70s who liked to hang out with computers and liked math. We're the kind of family that played Yahtzee for fun. Any Yahtzee? Get the Yahtzee out, right? It's an old school Yahtzee where you got to do the calculations and the math and that's what we do, right? We play puzzles, we do math games, and this is what happened from that intervening first set going to college. I hope that gets some of you excited about what your family's getting ready to do and be in no time at all. And we are 3 generations now of computer scientists. That's my sister on the left, my parents on the bottom. That's an old Mac. Anybody remember that one? Oh, it was a good machine. We were cutting edge. It was the kind of era, y'all don't know why some of us are brainwashed about that Control S and save. I know you're Google Doc people. But man, I lost a document and I still feel it. It was like 1993 and I still feel. I hit the off button and it was gone. It was dark times. I don't even know. That's my mother teaching students in South Africa some computer things. That's my daughters building their first supercomputer in our house. I told you we were a fun family, right? I mean, yeah, who else gets to do that? That's my son. And anybody know what that shirt says? All right, I'm not going to test you on binary reading. It says I code. right? Oh, yeah. And I knew you were getting there. You were just doing the last calculation. I mean, we really think about it. And there are thousands of years. So when I hear people talk about black people in STEM and tech, I'm like, why not? Everybody I know does it. I know it's not the case, but it is so possible because I've seen it be possible. I've seen it be apparent. And there are thousands of years of innovation coming from the African continent, from black Americans. And on top of that, we also have decades and years and years and years of revolutionary black attorneys. And something got in my head, maybe there's a connection between these two. So I raised to you the story of Mrs. Henrietta Lacks. How many of you are familiar with Henrietta Lacks? I'll tell you a little bit about her. Mrs. Henrietta Lacks was a woman who lived in Baltimore, Maryland, and she had this terrible pain in 1951, and she went to one of the few hospitals that would treat black patients. She went to Johns Hopkins University Hospital, one of the biggest, probably the biggest research institution in the United States, and they would treat black patients in a segregated ward, and she went in to get some questions asked about this pain that she had. It turns out it was a tumor, and the doctor did something that was his practice, and we now know is illegal. Without her consent, without her knowledge and without her consent, he took some of her cells and he added them to his lab to study. He had done it to every black patient that came through. It was his very normal procedure. We're still unpacking if he also did this as it concerns people of other backgrounds. And her cells did something no other cells had done. Typically, any chemist or biologist and individuals who do this work or think about it at all, cells don't last long, right? This is why they work so carefully to collect DNA or samples and keep them reviewed and keep them in careful care. And most cells, when they would harvest them, these cell lines would die in a couple of days. And they tried the same thing with Mrs. Lax's cells, and they didn't die. They just kept replicating and replicating and replicating. And that had never happened before. It's barely ever happened since then. This was 70 years ago. What happened to Mrs. Henrietta Lacks? They treated her for the cancer. The treatment they gave her caused her infertility. She said later, if she'd have known it would have made her infertile, she would have never done it. They didn't explain any of this to her. They didn't give her any of the information. She did end up dying probably about 7 or 8 months after the treatment began. But her cells lived on. And they went on to create cures for much of what we see in our public today, much of what we know for modern advancements in vaccines and polio and cures for Alzheimer's and treatments for artificial IVF. All of these things have come because of this taking from Miss Henrietta Lacks without her consent. They've made billions of dollars across the planet without a single dime ever being given to her family. Her family didn't even discover until 25 years after she died that this unlawful taking had happened. We call it unlawful because the practice was that at the time, but it was unlawful. And what we discovered is that, what happens if I wait too long to ask the law for remedy? Anybody know what happens?
Statute of limitation.
Hit a statute of limitation. Generally, for a tort claim, y'all didn't know I was going to fit a tort thing in there. I didn't even know I was going to fit torts in there, right? Generally, we'll have maybe like a 3 to 5 year statute of limitation, depending on where you are. That means if you don't raise it in 3 to 5 years after it happens, your claim is gone. This happened in 1951. 1951. The family didn't find out until 25 years later, and they kept attempting to ask the courts for remedy, and the response kept being, well, you waited too long. Oh, if only you would have done this as soon as you understood. And they kept saying there was no answer until my colleague, my dear friend, Professor Deliso Alford of Southern University Law Center said, I wonder if we could try a different legal theory. What is the theory of unjust enrichment? No one had thought of that before. No one had attempted this new kind of legal argument. And her argument was that we have unjust enrichment. Johns Hopkins did what they did. They said they didn't make any money. They kept giving it away. That's what happens in the science community. But the pharmaceutical companies didn't give it away. They turned it into mass products and mass profits. And under unjust enrichment, what did I say was the unique thing about Mrs. Lax's cells? They replicate. They're immortal. That statute of limitation never happens because they kept replicating. It was a law professor who thought of this in an entirely new kind of way. A new answer arose, and because of her legal research, I told you I was going to want to go to law school by the end of this, because of her thinking through, well, this is what the law says, what if we came at it a different way? This family has gotten remedies. I include this because I was hanging out with them. On the bottom is the son, Mrs. Lax's son. On the side next to me, on my right, is Ron Lax, Mrs. Lax's grandson. And on the left is famed civil rights attorney Ben Crump, and the work they did intentionally on this. And me. But what stands out in this that I think is so powerful is that once the judge said, "Ooh, this has legs, it's going to go somewhere," there was quickly a settlement order. Y'all, anybody notice that company? I was intrigued because when wonderful Suzanne drove me here and got me settled, I said, wait a minute, I'm going to talk about that company tomorrow. Thermo Fisher, right up the street, had agreed to a settlement. Now, what else stands out to me is they said they did a DJ Khaled and another one. Because now they're going after the next company that has also had unjust enrichment. That's what happens. It took 70 years for this family to get justice. Professor Alford is getting ready to come to UNM next week and talk about her work and telling women's stories and being intentional about it. And it only took them an extra week till they got the check from the first one till they started working on the next one. You can make those kind of changes. So why I decided to focus on innovation through the law, I told y'all I was a nerd. I told you I like to watch a lot of TV. I really like TV. I really like movies. So we've been thinking about artificial intelligence for years. Well, these are some of the movies. What do y'all see up here? What's up here?
Star Wars.
Star Wars. Wall-E, that's right. Now, just to be fair, I didn't want to fight. That's why there's Star Wars and Star Trek, because I know how y'all get. Trekkies, they're real. They're a real population out there. I'm mindful. So I heard Wall-E. What else do you see?
RoboCop.
Sorry?
iRobot.
RoboCop. All right, that's an old school one. Anybody else?
Terminator.
I will be back. It's right up there.
Matrix.
The Matrix, right? These are all, we've been thinking about artificial intelligence for years, and we've been studying it. So we should be experts by now, right? We're really not. But where there is no law, the technology will develop without any boundaries. That tends to be this thing we need to be mindful of and we're watching for, right? And so I think a lot on those margins. That's where if we're at a place where I as an individual love to watch the new technology come about, what happens when there's no limit to where it can go? And some of that's very exciting and some of that is very concerning. And some of the AI and the law issues we are still trying to solve. It's one of my favorite shows. Who knows that first show on the left? I told you I watch a lot of TV. Anybody know that show?
Black Mirror.
Black Mirror, that's absolutely right. This is when we learn that you should be nice to your AI, right? This is when we kind of trick the AI version of us to do things that, anyway, it's a very awesome show. This picture in the middle, though, stands out to me. It was what I'll call what do we have this? In New York, they had a DNA sample of a suspect for a crime, and what law enforcement did, what NYP did, was they knocked on every person's door and said, spit. And every person submitted a DNA sample that they then used to try and match to try to track down the individual that they believe committed the crime. They found the person they were after. What do you think they did with all the rest of those samples of every person's door they knocked on?
See if they've been in a different.
It's in the database. They didn't throw that stuff out. So we're thinking about, this is another major issue, right? What about privacy? What about your right to privacy? What about when your grandma requires you to swab your cheeks at the next Thanksgiving dinner? Y'all just giving your data away just willy-nilly, just for fun, because grandma said so. We think about those things. What happens when they turn that data over to law enforcement? What happens if it isn't going to mark you, but it might mark your grandchild, or your great-grandchild, or your great-great-grandchild, and we're trying to track down that harm. This third one always cracks me up. With the rise of self-driving vehicles, it's only a matter of time until there's a country song where the guy's truck leaves him. When I showed this, I gave a talk at the University of Kentucky. It killed. This totally killed. Y'all may be a little different population up here. But we are thinking about that. Self-driving vehicles. We just had our first major fatality with a totally self-autonomous vehicle. We're trying to see what will the law decide about these things. So we've got AI rights. I do know a population of people that are working on robot rights. and their right to citizenship, their right to due process. The AI, there's this wonderful, wonderful case, I can't wait to go back to teaching this week, of a woman who has decided, I'm done trying to figure it out with these live human males, and so she created an AI profile of the best features of all her exes. A little bit of this, open doors, delivered flowers, remember my birthday. And so she plans to marry this AI. I can't wait for the wedding invitation. There are so many questions. She's literally going to marry this AI. We're trying to figure out so many fun things. But we know that there are some risks of artificial intelligence that we're thinking about. We're looking at job displacement, bias, privacy, deepfakes, persuasive AI, weaponization, ethical concerns, power seeking. But in particular, my focus area is on algorithmic biases. This is where I'm focusing my next set of work and research, which is what happens when the AI understands or gives us a certain picture of who we are. And algorithmic biases, the lack of fairness in the output generated by an algorithm. These biases may include age discrimination, gender bias, racial bias, just to name a few, among other kinds of categories. And my focus then is on not just what it can't do, but what can it do with algorithmic justice? How can it get us to a more just society and place? So I like your brainstorming a bit, right? I want you to do some thinking back. Let's do some reflection. When was the last time you were aware of an interaction with an algorithm? Right now? What did you do that was right?
Today.
Today. Something today. Okay. Anyone else? Yeah, it happens almost every, if you use your navigation to get anywhere, that was an algorithm. If you had your playlist tell you the next good song that you might want to listen to, that was an algorithm, right? What does the AI you interact with nudge you to do?
Consume.
Consume. That's good. What was that? Spend money?
Get angry.
Ooh, that's deep. Get angry? Oh, now that is complex. That's a whole nother level. This is what they're getting mad at Meta about, right? Is that they realize that when they make you angry enough, you'll spend more time online. But if you see a cute kitten, you say, beautiful kitten, and you move on. But if they make you see an angry kitten, well, now I've got to stay here and get into the comments about what we think about an angry kitten. You're right. It makes you spend more time on the product. What data did AI use to decide what you see?
What you've seen before.
Previous views?
What you pause on if you're.
What gives your eye more pause? Our colleagues that are doing and developing things with these phones is fascinating that it's just not the camera tracking your eyes at the top to read your facial identity, but it's watching how long you look to the bottom left corners, watching how long you look to the far right. It's amazing what our colleagues are doing. It was concerningly amazing and wild. What choices did the AI take away? Now, I never thought about it. Oh, you had all these other answers. What choices has the AI taken from you because of all these other things? Yeah. Opposing viewpoints, very good. It curates one particular viewpoint, and before you know it, you're like, oh, I'm glad everyone agrees with me. There's this old joke of Liz Taylor. She couldn't believe it when John F. Kennedy won presidency. She said, everyone I know didn't vote for him. I can't believe how did that happen. But yeah, it takes away this idea that there could be other opposing ideas.
There's a curiosity too. A lack of curiosity.
Ooh, it takes away some of our curiosity to know what we don't know. Did you ever hear that?
Yeah, like it makes decisions on what you pay attention to.
It decides what you're going to think is interesting. Before you know it, you're like, I just love angry kittens. I don't know why, but show me more. And this is how the world should work. More angry kittens. And you forget that you had a different point of view.
Not taking action because you're so involved in the online world.
We're in such a virtual space, we forget that there's fresh air and beautiful, humid-inducing curls that are possible by going outside. I'm really happy. I'm really grateful for this humidity. This is just how I'm... Anyway, this is not the problem. The problem is actually not Terminator. Yet. But you'll notice some of the rhetoric is really focused around, oh my goodness, existential threat. Oh my goodness, we've got to be at the helm so we can stop the AI from eating us. And before you know it, you're thinking, yeah, that's our focus. But here's what that problem actually is. The problem is bias, errors, bad actors, being criminals, corporations, or governments that can misuse their artificial intelligence. That's where it is. And why do I know that? Because we have instance after instance after instance of the AI, the algorithmic thinking already doing that, reinforcing what we are and how we've already been treating ourselves. So what does that mean? What does that mean and what do we want to call it? Well, we use algorithms and AI to predict things we care about from things we can easily measure. But these proxies can be inaccurate. If I were to ask you what is the indication of a healthy family, you might say, well, it's their educational attainment, it's their financial stability, it's their home ownership. But is that really an indication of a healthy family? Not quite, right? But we don't know how to measure. They laugh at each other's jokes. They showed up at third cousin's quinceañera. We don't know how to measure that. We don't have ways. So we come up with other proxies that can be inaccurate. And algorithms are everywhere. And we're still unpacking this idea that because I've got my Fitbit, listen, I'll just say, they were so good. They walked me all over this campus. Look at me, 7,700 steps. We're not even done. But what happens when this is now sent over to my health insurance and to say, Sonia, you're not doing so great. I'm going to raise your rates. We worry about these interactions between our devices, and we need to use algorithms with caution because failures will be most harmful to the most vulnerable, and they tend to be tested out on the most vulnerable population. So AI does not understand what it's doing. I just want you to be very mindful, right? That t-shirt my son had on that said I code, that's how it thinks and how it is operating and what it is doing. All it is giving you is the zeros and ones that you said you wanted to see. And every time it doesn't give you the right number of zeros and ones, the ones you want, it says, okay, I'll give you another set. Do you like that better? All right. Here's another set of zeros and ones. So let's do a little test. Let's see. Well, this is a good one. I think you'll find some things here. When you're driving a vehicle and you come to this, it is called a traffic circle, roundabout. What was yours? Roundabout. I heard a third one though. A rotary. How many of you think traffic circle? How many of you think roundabout? How many think rotary? That's a new one. All right. Okay, all right. These lovely, delicious toppings go great on that ice cream you're going to win from that from the coupon today. And they're called? Sprinkles. How many are sprinkles people? How many are Jimmys? Very East Coast, right? Okay. The parent yelled to the child, go throw that in the
Basura.
basura. I like that. Sucio para la basura, right? How many said trash? How many said garbage can? How many said garbage? How many said basura? All right. This lovely, delicious treat is caramel or caramel? How many? Where are my caramel people? Where are my caramel people? I don't know why y'all say it wrong, but that's okay. That's okay, right? These devices that go on your feet, it's like we're getting a taboo. These devices that go on your feet to make you go fast are called
Trainers. Running shoes.
Where are my trainers? Where are my running shoes? Where are my sneakers? All right. This beautiful little creature that comes out on warm summer nights sets out and glows. And it is called?
Firefly.
Where are my lightning bug people? Where are my firefly people? Let's talk about this one a little bit. The firefly, the lightning bug. I find this to be very fascinating because it turns out across the country there's a unique split. Very fascinating, right? Hey, what stands out to you when you look at this image of the United States and where they refer to them as fireflies and where they refer to them as lightning bugs? Depends on where they are. Now does this sound interesting to you? On the left is an indication of wildfires at a disproportionately higher amount. And on the right, the image shows just where the dark blue on the right shows you where there's significant lightning strikes. Interesting. Causation is not correlation. We understand. A couple of science people are like, oh, shut this whole system down. But I find it fascinating. Which one is right? The AI is going to make a decision. The AI is going to tell you, is it called fireflies or is it lightning bugs? Where is it going to be making that determination? From an East Coast foundation, from a West Coast foundation? Is it going to be taking into various people's cultural norms that caramel is the correct way to refer to the word, though somehow your parents didn't love you enough and told you it was caramel, and I can't help that. But we have to think through what is the correct answer. And the AI is going to be making some decisions, and we don't know how. It falls into this category of what we'll call the black box. That's a term you'll hear of machine learning and deep learning models. And what we are really what we would love is some interpretable machine learning, deep learning models where we put the data in and it's transparent and we can check it and we can verify it and we can review it. But the way this modern AI is working is that it doesn't do that. It uses this black box model, which leaves us with a, I know I did it, I just don't know how I did it. That's just how the technology works. It's very exciting. It's very moving to kind of watch this model. But what we're watching and what I'm studying is this impact of how bias goes into this black box, and it's just like this notion of how racism is in the air, but you can't quite always figure out exactly where or how, or it's this carbon monoxide that's just kind of in the air and you can't articulate its exact location. And we're going to study how these societal biases will impact algorithmic bias, which will be based on cognitive bias by the coders, or incomplete data sources that don't take into account various lived experiences, and how that turns into this aggregated set of bias that will appear in our healthcare products, it will appear in our criminal justice process, and it will appear in all these different spaces because of this deeper foundational societal bias that we're watching and what we're thinking about. So let's take an example of facial recognition. This is one of my very favorite examples. In 2009, Hewlett-Packard at a local circuit city had a webcam on a computer. That is the most olden-timey sentence of all time. I don't know what's older, the circuit city or the HP computer. So these two colleagues, one black, one white, are working, and they discovered that when they stood in front of this camera, it could not see the black coworker. And it was quite funny to watch this video. She's like, here I am. He's like, I'm right next to you. It has no clue that there's two individuals in front of the camera. And so the response from HP said, this is a contrast recognition problem in certain lighting situations. You're too dark to be detected by our software. If only you stood in a brighter light. It's on you, the user. Now this is where it gets to be fascinating. Proctorio reportedly used facial recognition, facial detection software that failed to recognize black faces over half of the time. Anybody use this during COVID or in high school or in college and kind of saw this software? And why does the software keep saying it can't see me? And people had to turn on flashlights, not like phone flashlights, but those old school storm flashlights, flashed in their faces, multiple lamps in their room, closing the blinds because they were told the software can't see you, and it keeps saying that. Now, think about this. This is 2021. When did HP say they were aware that this was a problem? 2009, and it was no better. No improvement in this technology that we now made mandatory for you all to go to college. Well, here's where it's interesting. The facial recognition algorithms misidentify black faces, especially with darker skin. There was a probe image. The investigative lead was dead wrong. They arrested this man. They held him instead the AI said it was you. It turns out it was very wrong. 2 weeks after the Detroit mayor said, here's a problem. This won't happen again. 2 weeks later, it happened again. In Georgia, a gentleman was driving to his mother's house for Thanksgiving. He gets pulled over, and the police said, there was a robbery in Jefferson Parish. And he said, what's a parish? Anybody know what a parish is?
It's something in Louisiana.
That's right. Instead of counties, Louisiana has parishes. They follow a French system. But he's not from Louisiana. He didn't know what they were talking about. They didn't check his height, his weight, the mole or identifying features on his face. The AI said it was him. They grabbed him and locked him up. Wonderful lawsuit is happening in Georgia related to this. And at the U.S. border, they decided to help asylum seekers, they would require that you needed to use an app and register your face, and then you go. It's pretty fantastic. It doesn't work on any of the Haitian or darkest complexion people coming across the border. So what was the response the U.S. government told these asylum seekers? Go buy a better phone. I don't know where the store is at the border to get a better phone, but they didn't have it. So now they have stadium lights that have to run throughout the day in an attempt to capture people's faces in the sunlight, because it cannot, to this day, still detect people past a certain pigmentation. Now, why is this fascinating to me? The AI, there was a study done, and you may have heard it on NPR, but they asked the AI, please make an image of black doctors treating white patients. And it lost its daggone mind. The ChatGPT did not know what to do. It said, is this a black African doctor providing care to white suffering children? No, that's a white doctor treating black children. In the middle, are these doctors helping children in Africa? No, that's a giraffe. Is this a traditional African healer helping white kids? Why are they all in beads? It didn't know what to do. It didn't understand it because it was understanding what we've produced thus far, which includes tons and tons and tons of bias. So why is the outcome the way it is? Because historic racism is captured in the data. We know under our legal history, under this capturing of the existence and the experience of black people in the United States, that the black family, the black man, the black woman, the black child has been marked with other. And that is what is playing out in the captured DNA. That is what is being discovered in the materials. And it's captured in our legal cases, the Virginia slave codes, the U.S. Constitution. Instance after instance after instance says these are black people and here's how they are to be treated. So at the point that by the time the AI comes to figure out is the word caramel or caramel, it already knows what to think and how to treat black people, because every bit of data we've collected says this is who they are and this is how they are to be treated. If you're black, you're ugly, unchristian, and uncivilized. And in particular, if you're a woman, you're also unwoman. The degendering and the masculine attachment to black women and the black female experience in the United States. That's deep, right? Because I said all this stuff is captured in this thing called a black box. So what am I supposed to do from that? Where do I capture it? And we continue to see these crude historical depictions captured, whether it's by men, by women, by children, and all of these are data points that the AI is collecting and saying, here's how you treat them, here's how you incarcerate them, here's how you take away opportunities. Fantastic movie you should see on Netflix. I don't know stock in Netflix, I'm just saying that's where it is. Get your mama's password. But it's a movie called Coded Bias that talks about it. Now back to this facial recognition that Proctorio was using. Here's what's fun. You see how much it didn't work on black faces, but look at all the other racial groups it also didn't work on. It basically doesn't work for anybody. Didn't work on people of Middle Eastern descent. You see how many white people it didn't work on, East Asian, Southeast Asian, Indian, Latinos and Hispanics. It does not work. And just as a reminder, this is what the world's skin tone representation actually looks like. I don't know who this software worked on. And they told y'all you were cheating on an exam. All right, that's what I do. That's the kind of research. That's the kind of things we're looking at. So let's ask some of these tougher questions. How do we do something about it? I'm encouraging you to be innovative. I'm going to give you a couple of tips of what I look for and what I'm encouraging you to think about in your own ways of innovation, of connecting. For me, it was connecting tech and law to do something about racial justice in the United States. That's my passion area. That's what I've been thinking on. And there's inspiration, there's creativity, there's analysis, there's using tech, there's developing yourself, getting teams and success. But I'm going to give you some things that I wrestle with, particularly with the rise of AI. And I'm going to encourage you to spend more time thinking than you're used to or really want to. That ChatGPT, ooh, it's tasty. Ooh, it's nice. Write a cover letter. Tell me why this book was any good that they made me read. Tell me how this theory connects to that theory, because I can't see it. And what that'll get you is kind of, this first level thing is memorizing things. I do believe you actually need some stuff inside you. We were talking about that a little earlier. I believe you've got to have some content and context inside of you to apply it to where it goes next. Because from memorizing helps you understand, but then now we need to get to these higher order thinking, which is applying. This is when your brain's neurons go just wild. They're like, oh my goodness, this is so exciting. So when we saw that on that show, it connected to this kind of reality, and that lines up with why people do or don't get access to resources. So if we did this, they can now get the resources. You're going to have to make those kind of mental connections. And here's my point one. These are 3 things that have helped me feel excited about being innovative. You can do anything you want to do. How many of you remember at some point telling a family member or a friend a dream or an idea or some kind of job you wanted, and they said, that's stupid? Sorry about your grandma. She's hardcore, that grandma. That's wild, right? Think about it, that your own trajectory was kind of captured and broken in that kind of space. Here's what I want you to think about. What you love, what the world needs, what you can be paid for, and what you're good at. You got to understand these 4 different things about yourself, for real, a real deep dive of what these things actually mean to you, because from there, I want you to understand that it will line up to be your vocation, your profession, your passion, and then your mission. And I think a lot of times we're walking our way through this journey and not taking the time to figure out what we're supposed to be here to do. Now, I'm also not telling you to go live this life hoping people will pay you and cover your bills. You're going to have to hustle and work. You got to do the work. You got to do the work, right? And this comes from the Ikigai kind of principle sets. But I also believe you'll know you can do anything you want to do if you know who you are and where you come from. And that is really honoring the roots of our ancestors and what they came through. I'm able to stand here before you today because my grandmother was a domestic worker. And when they tried to encourage her to have her daughters being domestic workers, she told them, nah, you wouldn't like her cooking. She told her daughters, you're going to a different journey. She told her sons, you're supposed to have a different journey. You're going to go to high school. You're going to go have these other experiences. And this encouragement, because of the lives they lived, we honor them. We honor our foreparents and what they went through to put us in this time and space, and then we don't waste it. I also like this one. Coach Dion. I know he's up the street. Y'all got beef with him. I got beef. I mean, we're in our rival Western conferences. So we're always thinking about it. But he said something that I really like. Don't settle. Don't agree to mediocrity. And don't find yourself in a place of simplistic routine. Sooner or later, you've got to identify what you want, devise a plan, and go get it. The life you desire is waiting on you. Let's go, baby. I like that part. That's what keeps me. But I like this, right? Things are not going to just fall in your lap. You can do anything you want to do, which is going to require you to be about excellence. This is what I really wanted to entitle today, right, is that you got to be about excellence. You got to be about a better standard of yourself. You got to be your best version of yourself. Not the best version of someone else, but your own best standard. What do I know to be the way I should carry myself and the way I should be? And I got this thing. I might as well make it plain since I'm on the line. I got to have this idea. I can't stand the phrase imposter syndrome. Throw it right in la basura. Directly in the trash. It is the most wrong way to organize yourself because it's not actually true. There's nothing wrong with you. You want to know why you feel like you don't know what's going on? It's because it's the first week of class and you don't know what's going on. You got to go study. You got to go work on something. You got to go perfect it. You got to go wrestle with it. You got to go from memorizing to understanding to applying. You got to make it complex. You got to mull over it and taste it and just be uncomfortable with it. That's how you learn. That's how you advance yourself. And when you feel like they don't want you there, you'll realize it doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. There's something wrong with them. Don't let their brokenness set your standards. This is all a head game. Don't let yourself get pumped. Y'all can write that down. Don't get pumped. Don't get pumped, right? We call this actually trespasser syndrome. There's nothing, it's not that you feel that you don't belong there. There's this notion, if you think about imposter syndrome, it falls on this idea that you're faking it. That you're trying to get over on people. Well, when did that happen? The reality is that someone else has told you that you don't belong. So put it right in the trash, right in the trash. Y'all too good for that. Don't get caught in that kind of ideas. So here's what I want us to do. I need 4 volunteers. I shouldn't give it away. Give me 4 volunteers, 4 individuals. Come on up. Y'all give a round of applause. Come on up. Person number 2. Yes. Come on up. I need 2 more people. This is where the fun happens. All right. That's why they hand go right up. Y'all give it up. Give it up. Give it up. 1 more. It won't be right unless we have 4. We're going to just shut this part down. All right. So 1 more hand in the back. Come on up. Stand up right here. Y'all give a warm round of applause. Looks good. All right. 1, 2, 3, and 4, please line up, however you find fit. Now, please share your name for us.
Embra.
This is Embra. Y'all give it up for Embra. Embra, I'm going to ask you a question. Tell us an information that you know that you know.
I am from Ethiopia.
Embra knows she's from Ethiopia. Y'all give it up for a correct answer. That is a correct answer. Please share your name with us.
I'm Colette.
This is Colette. Y'all give it up for Colette. Colette, here's your question. Give us some information that you know that you don't know.
I don't know why the sky is blue.
Give it up for Colette. She does not know why the sky is blue. I don't know. That's appropriate to know, right? Please share your name with us.
Matilde.
Matilde. Y'all give it up. Matilde, tell us something you don't know that you know.
I don't know how to change a tire until I'm in that situation.
But you know that. So tell us something you don't know that you know.
Don't know that I know.
Something that you don't know that you know.
PEMDAS?
Sorry?
PEMDAS?
PEMDAS, y'all know, parentheses. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. I appreciate that math shout out. Do you know how to make brownies?
Yes.
How do you make brownies?
With flour, eggs, sugar, mix it in.
Flour, eggs, sugar, mix it in, some powder, that cocoa powder. Look, she didn't even use a box. I'm impressed. But you notice that you didn't know that you knew that. But here it is, you know it. Y'all give it up. She knows how to make brownies. We appreciate that. Now, I think you can see where we're headed. I think you know where the pattern's taking us. What is your name?
Angela.
Angela? Yeah, tell us something you don't know that you don't know. This is the hardest one. This is, my bad. I didn't tell y'all where to line up. I just said get in the line. Can I give you a hint? I don't know. Don't give it up for Angela. We don't know what we don't know that we know. Please return your seats. Give a warm round of applause. That was excellent. You know, it's always college. It's always training, right? Information that you don't know, you know. These are 4 kinds of people you're going to need in your life. 4 kind of things you need to be prepared for. Information that you know, you got yourself. Use yourself as a resource. Pull from yourself as a resource. Information that you know that you don't know is why we're in a university, why you're in class, why you're learning from teachers, right? You're going to get to these teachers and they're going to give you some information. That's why you sign up for the classes you're in. But information that you don't know that you know is why you're going to need mentors. Someone to sit down and tell you, oh, so between your freshman and sophomore year, you should have been applying for these number of jobs. Oh, your resume should have these features included. Oh, you might want to be thinking about adding on this kind of profession. You need to have mentors in your life. And for information that you don't know, well, we give that over to the angels. They'll tell us, they'll handle it for us, right? There are some things you just won't know. But you've got to be aware of these kind of nuances in your life. And so what I'd like you to be thinking about doing is setting a 3-year goal for yourself in 5 areas. To be innovative, set a 3-year goal on your education, on your finances, for your career, for your wellness, and for social aspects of your life. You should set a 3-year goal. I want to accomplish. Make them SMART goals. Actionable, timely, and all those other parts of SMART. And then I want you to think about a mentor, mentee, and a friend who's going to help you accomplish these goals. Each one of those areas, you need a mentor, someone to tell you what you don't know you know. You need a mentee, someone that you have information about that you can educate more. And then you need a friend where you can be vulnerable and say, I don't know what's going on. And on top of that, I want you to be thinking about some other people you will need in your group under mentorship. Professor Mariam Aranjani at the University of New Mexico School of Law has done intentional work of looking at allyship, mentorship, and sponsorship. And you should be aware that for almost every one of those categories, you should have an ally, you should have a mentor, and you should have a sponsor. Someone's going to say your name when you're not in the room. And this is where we have to do that thing that introverts like me don't like. We got to go up to strangers and say, can you be my sponsor? No, okay, you give up. Go to the next one, right? We got to keep going. You can't give up. Third point is you must give back. To whom much is given, much is required. That's right, Uncle Ben. And Jesus said it. You are required to give back. You have been given many opportunities. You've been given things that no one else has seen before. And so you should be thinking, what am I going to do about this tomorrow? Personally, professionally, for your institution, where are you going to be doing these kind of actions and activities? And all of this is in tribute to my loving mother. She passed away last summer. This is number 4. This was my mom's statement to every single person. Why not try? Why not try? Why not try something brand new? Why not be innovative? Why not go in a completely different direction? And to tell you her journey, as I said, she was from Panama, and her biggest plan when they came to the States was to be a nun. She wanted to go to Africa, and she wanted to be a nun. This is her in her Catholic school uniform in the 60s, right? This was her biggest plan and idea. And then she went to college and met this dude. And she's like, maybe that nun thing's going to have to take a back seat. And on the left is me, or my mom, the Twin Towers. And that's me on the inside, right? That's my dad in his afro. And she took off decades to raise me and my sister and 2 of my cousins. Decades. She had a whole career plan. But you know what she did after that is she restarted. She rebooted. And at the age where I am when I got tenure, my mom said, what's next? She said, what's next? She went back to school, she got degrees, she became a preacher, she became an associate pastor, and then God said, now do you want to go travel the world? She went to Australia, she went to China, and mentored children of death row inmates. She went to Australia and worked on human trafficking. She baptized people in the Jordan River. She went to India, she's been to South Africa, she's preached all over the world. She lived all her dreams. And this is what she believed. Why not try? If it doesn't work, do something else. Don't give up, colleagues. Don't give up on these big dreams you have. Harriet Tubman said this. Every great dream begins with a dreamer. Always remember you have within you the strength, the patience, and the passion to reach for the stars to change the world. I'm so grateful for your time and for letting me chat with you. This is my AI lady that was made, and I cut my hair to look like her. I love her. I think she's fantastic. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it. Take questions. Does anybody have any thoughts, questions? Y'all don't get me arrested since we were online, but I'll turn it over to Avi. And anybody have any questions you're thinking about with AI? Yes.
Yeah. So the issues that